Good morning, everyone. This morning we are going to do a flow for our hips. Nice to see people joining already. It's lovely. Quite the sense of connectedness, these Instagram live videos, isn't it? I hope you've been catching some of the concerts that people have been putting out around the world as well. Quite wonderful. So this morning we're doing a flow for our hips. If you think about the ways that your hips can move, back up a little bit here, they can go in outward rotation, right? You can go the opposite way in inward rotation. And then you can abduct, so opening them, pulling on the inner hip. You can stack your knees and adduct, so then you're pulling on the outside line of your hip. And then two more, because that's four, outward, inward, abducting, adducting. Two more are if you do any kind of back bending, you're going to pull into the front of your hips. And then if you're forward bending, you're going to pull into the back of your hips and compress into the front. So we'll explore all 6 ranges of motion for our hips. So just coming into a comfortable cross-legged seat, one foot in front of the other, if you like. If you're quite comfortable in half lotus, then feel free to take that. If you'd rather, sometimes it's nice just to have permission to lie back. So lie down, set your feet about hip width apart, and let the inner knees rest together. Hands can be on your belly. They seem to naturally want to go there. Maybe by your sides, palms up or down. Or maybe one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. If you're seated, they can do much the same. Hands in your lap, on your thighs, palms up or down. Whatever lets your collarbones smile. My first Yin teacher used to say that, and I love that. Shrug your shoulders up to your ears, and now let them slide down your back away from your ears. Tuck your chin in slightly to lengthen the back of your neck, and just let your eyes fall softly shut, settling in to your space, onto your mat. Just let go of your morning thus far, probably just started. Let go of today, whatever's in store. Let go of the worries and the cares, so that this next hour is just for you, body, mind, and spirit. Do a body scan. Take note if there are any areas on any level, physical, mental, spiritual, or emotional. Any areas that may be in need of a little bit of extra care or attention this morning. Just acknowledge whatever arises. And it's not that you'll dwell on these things, but you do create that space. Forgiveness, perhaps, for whatever these things may be. When we check in again at the end of the hour, you may notice that things have subtly shifted in perspective or sensation. And then begin to notice your breath. Don't change anything, just become aware of it. Whereabouts in your chest cavity are you breathing? How fast are you breathing? Are you breathing through your nose or through your mouth, or a bit of both? So begin to breathe in and back out again through your nose. Pull that air in past the rings of your nostrils. Trace its path as it flows up your nose, down your throat into your lungs, and then back out that same pathway. Feel the swirl past the rings of the nostrils as the breath exits the body. Notice the difference in temperature right there at the rings of the nostrils. The coolness of the air as it swirls in, the warmth as it swirls back out. Notice how your breath is slowing down, lengthening and deepening So start next to even out these inhales and exhales. Put a count, maybe to 2 or 3 in your mind as you pull the air in. And then that same steady count as you send it back out again. Match your numbers to the breath. Don't force the breath to be anything you think it should be. Allow it to deepen naturally. If the numbers don't seem to work for you, then there's a little mantra you can use, a little phrase. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. Match that phrase to your inhales and your exhales. Now on another inhale, pay attention to your rib cage. Notice how it expands in 4 directions. The fronts lift and separate. So do the backs. Notice the side ribs on another inhale. They don't move as much, but there's still some separation, a slight lift in the armpit area. Now watch your rib cage contract as you exhale. On another inhale, go deeper. Look at your lungs now. See them with your mind's eye, healthy, virtual sponges that fill up the majority of our chest cavity. Watch how they expand in those same 4 directions. Fronts, backs. Feel the inner and the outer sides expand, thicken as they take in air. Know that those lungs turn a glowing rosy pink as you inhale. And then watch them on the exhale contract, expelling air. Know that they turn slightly blue on the exhale. Take a moment to send some gratitude for your lungs here, marveling at all the work they do for you all day, all night. This is your yogic breath that you're breathing. It's the main breath that we use in Yin Yoga. From time to time we use the ocean or Ujjayi breath. But it has this same steady rhythm. Maybe you're counting to 4, 5, or 6, or the words of that mantra are spaced far apart. And this breath is an anchor. It helps anchor your mind in your body, keeping you present. Something for your mind to focus on. But the other reason for this breath is that it's also your gauge. It acts as a guide. And if it becomes ragged, you can't seem to find this lovely, calm rhythm that you have right now, then you know you need to back off or change something so that you can always come back to this most important part of yoga, any style of yoga, and that's your breath, the link between your body and your mind. Now, if you are lying back, make your way to one side and pause there for a moment. Everyone can blink their eyes open and closed a few times. If you're seated, you might want to lift your knees, straighten them out, give them a little bounce, maybe and rock from the top of the hips. Bella here, know that my cat likes to make appearances, so forgive her, but she loves yoga. So we're going to start off with a pose that can be a little bit hard on the knees. We'll work into it though. You also, I brought a few things in here. If you have a pillow or a cushion in your room, or some quilts, I know some of my quilter friends are with me, you can use them kind of to roll up like this for where we're going to head, because then it's nice to rest on them. Maybe a cushion can be stacked on top as well, and then you can set your chin on. So that's where we're going. So if you need to grab a couple of little props like that, then feel free to go get them. So I'll set them back there for now. We're going to start off with pose of the child, what's called pose of the child. So you want to have your knees open to about the width. Let's see if I just move this a little bit lower so you can see my mat. There we go. So open your knees to about the width of your mat, but keep your toes together. If you can't sit on your heels because of knee issues or knee health, then take a block or a couple of books even, put them, whatever you have, put the block or the books between your feet and then sit back on that. You can also turn your block to another side or stack another book or two on top if you like, so that you can lift your hips, and you can see right away that doesn't put as much pressure on the knees. So feel free to do that. Alternatively, you might like to have the block in front of you so that you can rest your forearms, hands, your head on it, and then you can let your arms go in front of you. If you get your head to the mat, no problem, and don't let your bum pop up, keep it down. Then stack your hands, or put your head on your mat, put your arms out in front of you if you like. So right away here, I'll come up so that I can talk a little bit. So getting set up so that you can stay in this pose for a little bit, we're going to just take a couple of minutes here, and then we move it further along into a pose that's going to, as I said, be a little bit tricky on the knees, but also great for the inner lines of your legs. And you can already feel what's going on the inner lines of your legs. So notice that tugging. Maybe for you, it's along the inner groins area that it's pulling quite a bit. Maybe the compression in the front of your hips is what you seem to be focused on at first. Or maybe it's the tops of the ankles. Can you find your big toe? Both of them. Breathing in, find your breath that you had. Breathing out. So we're here for a minute, and we're going to change this a little bit. So move your torso forward so that your hips come up into the air. And you've got this alignment here. So your hip is over your knee. Don't have it too far back, and don't be too far forward. Try to get that perpendicular look to your hip-knee alignment. Walk your arms a little bit forward. Maybe you go down on your chin. Maybe it's your forehead. Relax your belly here. Let your upper back relax. And you'll feel a back bend happening. You might feel some pull through your shoulders. The compression that was in your knees and your ankles, the pressure there has dissipated. But notice how it's shifted to different areas. Steady breathing. In Yin, we look for these tugs. The first principle or tattva is this: find an edge, a place where you're a little uncomfortable. It's never painful. And we find and notice these tugs. And when we're in that pose at a comfortable discomfort, then we stay still. We try not to back away. Now from here, this is where you might want to grab your little cushion or a rolled up quilt so you can feed them under your torso like that. Relax down onto it again. And then start to turn let your knees slide open a little bit. And turn your feet out Charlie Chaplin style. Now this is where it becomes hard on the inner knee, so if your knees have slid off your mat like mine have onto the floor and it's too intense, just simply swivel around a little bit so that you've got padding under them, or put a blanket under your knees as well. That's another thing you can do. And then let them go apart again. Turn your toes out, like I said, like Charlie Chaplin. The tendency here is to want to go forward. You want to keep your hips back. And then we stay like this. Close your eyes. This is intense. This is a pose that is a place where you can use the ocean breath. If you're not familiar with that, it's an HA sound in the back of your throat, like you're fogging up glasses to clean them, or a mirror. You breathe in with an AH sound, but your lips would get, and your mouth would get very dry. If you kept your lips apart. So put your lips together and push that HA sound through your nose. So you're still saying, but your lips are together. You start to sound a bit like Darth Vader. Just 30 more seconds here. Relax those legs. This is intense. So that stillness is an inner stillness. Use your breath. Listen to your breath. So you're noticing various tugs, maybe when things change, maybe when they shift. You're noticing your thoughts. And when you disappear out of your room, then you can use your breath to bring your mind back into your body, noticing, finding that calmness, that inner stillness. Now to come out here, you're going to slide forward. So use your hands under you to move forward, kind of like a worm. I guess tuck your one set of toes under and push back into that heel. Your knee will come up off your mat, and that's what you want. Do that with the other set of toes. Push back and then wiggle those legs back together. Turn sideways here again. Maybe stay on your rolled up quilts or little pillow or not. Come to rest on your stacked hands with your forehead and be still. Just notice that delicious feeling when you come out of these poses, that warmth, that tingling, that coolness. Spearmint feeling, such a good description. As the blood rushes back into those compressed areas, that's removing toxins, just like deep tissue massage. And then if you like, you might like to bend your legs at the knees and wave them back and forth, windshield wiper style, just to put some motion across the pelvis. Maybe turning them around in those circles, or maybe just lying still. Take your time. And then when things have settled down, let your legs float down. Push up onto all fours. And then either cross at the ankles and come to a seated position, or slide your legs to one side and come to a seated position. Be careful for those knees. I'm going to do a flow of 3 poses for one side, and then we'll do the same 3 on the next side. All right, this first one and the third one of the little sandwich can be an aggravator for sciatica. So if you have any sciatica issues, sit on either the edge of your yoga mat rolled over, or sit on the edge of a little quilt or a blanket, towel, just your sit bones, that bump in the middle of your butt cheek. Sit that right on the edge so you're just kind of rocking almost off it. That elevates your hips a little bit and tilts them. So we'll start off with what's called Shoelace Pose. Stop my timer here. Take your right leg in your hands and see if you can bring that knee on top of the other knee. For lots of people, there's tightness from years of not living on the floor. There's tightness in the hips, and this knee is sticking up like that. So take a block, or if you've got your books, and set it under the thigh, maybe like that. Set it between the knees, even like that. That's another thing you can do, so that this leg can relax, because you want to maybe give it a little squish and make sure it relaxes. Some of you might have your knees easily, they come together like that, and so then lean back, hold that bottom leg in, and have both of them stacked on top of each other. If both of them stacked now makes a gap happen there, put something between. Block, maybe you don't need a block, maybe it's just something like your hoodie is going to be. Take that off, maybe you're warming up now, I know I am, so you can put that in there like that, okay? So that's an option. Try to have the side edges of your feet on your mat here. From the front, it looks like this. Okay, so knees are stacked. So then plant your hands on the floor in front of your knees if they're both stacked. If the bottom leg is straight, then your hands are on either side of that bottom leg like that. Push back a little bit and you'll notice how that sends the weight into the hips and off the knees, and that's exactly what you want. So as you're starting to just lean forward, keep a little bit of pressure. That's a tip from Sarah Powers. I spent a lovely weekend with her in a training workshop in Miami Beach a few years ago. And that's a little tip from her, and it helps keep that pressure off the knees. The other thing you can do if you've got one straight leg, use your hands beneath the back of the knee. Take some of the pressure off that knee, and you can still keep a little pressure there. If you're okay, let your head dangle. If that's okay for the back of your neck, try to relax your shoulders, relax your back. If you're doing both leg bent version, you can use a block. Maybe rest your arms on it. Maybe it's your elbows and you rest your head in your hands. Maybe it's your head. And then relax your arms. Remember, if you're feeling it, good advice from Bernie Clark, if you're feeling it, you're doing it. Steady breathing. Notice that edge. Notice the sensations in various areas. Pretty strong pull through the outer point of the hip joint. There's compression by leaning forward. Some of you might find just sitting in this pose is plenty, and leaning forward makes it too intense, so then stay seated. Keep your hands resting just where they seem to want to comfortably be. And breathe. Know how much good you're doing for your hip joints just being on the floor. Feel the squish through the groin. You might even notice a ropey feel. There's very strong, large ligaments in our hip joints, the largest joint in our body. And so as a result, the ligaments need to be very strong, very thick, to hold the femur in place into that pelvic socket there. Relax your jaw, maybe wiggle it, make sure that it's just relaxed. Your tongue is loose in your mouth, the tip of the tongue maybe behind the teeth. Ride that breath in and out. You can send your breath to your hip joints. And if this is the first time you're doing yoga or yin, you might think, wait a minute, my lungs are in my chest cavity, not in my hips, Sandra. But you can energetically send that breath there. Imagine it. Sometimes I imagine vapor-like fingers going into the hip socket, massaging around, relaxing. Now on your next inhale, you're going to slowly come up. Exhale when you get up. Take that top leg off, set it down, bring the bottom leg out, set it down. Swivel sideways here again. Just lean back on your hands and take a few breaths to enjoy that feeling. Warmth flowing through those compressed areas. So beneficial. Do a few windshield wipers here maybe. Just put a little bit of motion back in the hip joint. And then we're going to swivel around onto all fours. Have a block handy. Slide your right knee up to your right wrist, and then swivel that foot up towards the left wrist like so. Check your knee here. If you can already feel some twinges happening here on the knee, then this pose is probably not for you, but you can modify it. Go on your back and put your right ankle above your left knee. Send your knee out like that, and then you can lift the bottom leg up, you can reach through, you can increase the pressure. Okay, so then there's not as much pressure on your knee. So if you're okay here, you're on all fours, then tuck your left toes under and creep that left leg back like that. And then you'll just kind of stop. A lot of people, there's a gap here, so put something under there. Block might be too big because you don't want to overcompensate, but it might be just right. Maybe it's a quilt again, and you stick it under that butt cheek, just so you have something to rest on so that you can have this nice levelness across your low back. Look at this right knee. See if you can slide it a little bit, and if you're on your back, same thing. It's going out to the side. Slide it to the side so you feel that pull in the hip, the inner and the outer hip. We're going to spend the first minute in full swan. A lot of tendency is to lean forward like this. See if you can walk your hands back a little bit and lean back. Notice the back bend that starts to happen here. Relax your shoulders. I know I tend to be guilty of that. Shoulders up, so let them come down your back. Close your eyes. Make sure you're not sitting on your right foot. You can flex it a little bit. That helps protect the knee. Notice how you feel the pull in the front of your left hip just by moving your torso back ever so slightly. Relax your shoulders. Now inhale, and we're going to walk our hands forward and come to sleeping swan. Maybe you rest on your forearms like this. Still on. Back up a little bit. Come to rest on your forearms. Maybe you turn your elbows out to the side, stack your hands, make a nice pillow for your forehead. Maybe it's your fists that you stack. Rest your forehead on your stacked fists. Maybe you have that block handy and you can rest your forehead on the block. Stretch your arms out. Relax through the shoulders. Notice how the pull has disappeared, probably dissipated. Maybe there's a little bit of a pull in the front of your left hip. But now notice how the compression has increased in your right hip. Some of you might find that your head just comes down onto the mat, and then you can stretch your arms out in front of you. Palms can be down or together in prayer. Whatever allows you to relax into this pose. Find your breath, same as you had in that opening meditation. In through the nose. Back out through the nose. Notice the complete different orientation of each hip. Your right hip is in outer rotation. There's some abduction going because of your knee going to the side, so you get a nice pull along the inner line of the leg. Compression in the front of the hip joint from leaning forward. Take your mind to the left hip. Notice the pressure in the front of it and right down the center of that leg. Now, inhale your way, coming back up. If you have something under this right butt cheek, move it out of the way so you can lean to one side. Swing this back leg all the way around, and if you're on your back, make your way to one side and pause there for just a moment, and then help yourself up to a seated position. This next one we come right into is square pose. Ideally, we swing this left leg all the way around and just stack it on top of our bottom leg. But that doesn't happen for a lot of people, especially when you're just beginning into yoga. So the idea for this one is your knees going to the side, okay? So your foot is not here by your groin. Your foot is actually away from you. So make a parallel line with the edge of your mat and your shin. Now take this left leg. See if you can stack it just like two logs. It's also known as log pose on top. For a lot of people, that's not going to happen because of tightness in the hip, and you don't want to compromise your knee. So bring your foot in front of that right knee. So you've got left ankle by right knee. Over here, you should have your left knee kind of hovering or maybe resting on that right foot below it. If there's a gap, again, then put something there between the foot and the knee. Put a block maybe along the side of the thigh you need, so no knee pain here. You want to make sure that you can prop something so that this knee can relax onto something. All right, so very important that you have parallel coolness here. Side edge of your mat or the top edge of your mat, shins are parallel. Whether they are stacked, parallel, or one in front of the other, they're parallel. Now, lean forward, and just like we did with Shoelace Pose, we're going to plant our hands and push back so that the weight and the pressure goes off the knees and the weight stays back in the hips. Stay here, relax your shoulders. If your back is okay to round, let it round. Let your head dangle if that's okay. If your low back has any kind of disc issues or just doesn't feel right with rounding, then keep your tummy pulled in and just lean with a flat back from the hips. Blocks can be great here too. You can set it in front of you. Maybe rest your forearms on or your elbows like I showed you before and have your head in your hands. Maybe it's the head goes onto the block. Whatever lets you enjoy marinating in this comfortable discomfort. Notice your hips again. Outer rotation, it's almost, well it is, you're doing that swan pose we just did with the right leg bent. You're doing it with both your legs now. So swan is a nice warm up to square pose. Keeping those feet slightly flexed can help protect the knee as well. Steady breathing in and out. This is another pretty intense pose for your hips. So use that ocean breath. This one can also get some acupressure going on you and along your gallbladder meridian line, down the outside line of your legs. The pull you're feeling probably along the inner lines of the legs as well and into the groin. You're hitting some trigger points along your liver meridian and your kidney meridian. Steady breathing. Square pose, and the very first one we did in this set of 3, shoelace, are 2 of the best poses for us Westerners. They work deeply into your hip sockets, as you can well attest to right about now. Depending on how far forward you are, you might feel some tugging deep in the butt cheek, in the back of that hip joint too. It can be nice pull along your spine as well. We tend to have issues in our tissues, as we well know, and we carry them in different places because we're all individuals, but shoulders is one area of tightness. Hips is another one, and a lot of us don't realize that a lot of our tightness in our hips, yes, it comes from not living on the floor, a huge part of it, but also stress is carried there as well. And sometimes when we do these deep, intense tugs like this, it can be pretty intense emotionally. On your next inhale, you're going to slowly come up. Exhale when you get all the way up. Take that top leg, front leg, set it down. Bring the bottom leg out, set it down. Lean back on your hands. This way again. And just close your eyes and enjoy that release. How much good you did in those deep in the hip sockets. And then you have options here. Stay still. Maybe windshield wipers is what you want to do. Trying to think about the inner and the outer knee going to the floor. Or maybe it's straightening those legs. Give them a nice little bounce. A rock from the top of the hips. And then when you're ready, swing around. We're going to do just a little bit of a yang active thing here. Come to all fours, tuck your toes under, and push up into downward facing dog. Send those heels down. Feel the strength in your legs. Maybe start to walk the dog, lift one heel and bend the other set of toes. Push those hips up and back. Push both heels down to the floor, nice for the hamstrings. come high on all 10 toes. Give them a really good bend. So good for our toes. The first place we start to tighten up is our feet. So give them a good bend. Maybe send the heels down again. And then drop your knees down. Sink back to child's pose just for a few seconds. A little regrouping, noticing how you're feeling. Taking stock of each hip. Maybe it feels slightly different. And then when you're ready, come slowly up onto all fours. Once more, swing those legs to one side or cross at the ankles and roll over them, mindful of your knees, and come to a seated position. This one, remember again, is aggravator of sciatica, as is that last one we did, and I forgot to mention that, square pose. So take your left leg, bring it across. See if you can stack one knee on top of the other. Remember the little tricks. Put a block between there, or put a block on the side of your thigh. Go this way so you can see. So you can put a block here if you need to, or maybe this way. If your knees come together, then bring the bottom leg in. Keep those knees together. Make sure that they're not out here. Okay, we're not doing square. We bring our knees stacked on top of each other as much as you can. Get the knee to the knee. And then again, if that pops the knee into or if there's a gap there and the knee pops up, put something between it. Maybe you just need like a hoodie in there as well. Inhale, and then plant your hands on the floor in front of you. And in front of both of those knees, if both legs are bent like this, and push back a little bit. If the bottom leg is straight, then your hands are on either side of that lower limb and push back. So this keeps the weight off and the pressure off your knees here. You don't want any knee pain here. And the weight stays back in the hips then. You can, because this half shoelace puts an extra pull, for those of you that do this, on your hamstring, but it can be kind of intense on the back of the knee. So slide your hands beneath the back of the knee if you like. That'll take some pressure off the knee. If that still doesn't take enough pressure off the hamstring, slip a block under the bottom of that knee, not a problem. And take the pressure off. You want some pressure on the hamstring if you're doing half shoelace with the bottom leg straight, but you don't want it off the charts that you can't get your mind off that, oh my God, my hamstring. So you remember, we always look for that edge, that comfortable discomfort. It's manageable. You can still breathe in through your nose, back out through your nose. Allow your back to round if it's okay for your low back. If not, then keep your tummy pulled in and just lean with a flat back. You don't have to let that lower back round. If it feels okay though, then by all means let it round. Let your shoulders relax. Let your head go if it's okay for the back of your neck. Breathing in. Breathing out. Just past the halfway point here. Notice if you're hanging on to anything. Maybe it's a tightness that the top leg doesn't seem to want to relax. Maybe it's the quad. Send your mind there, send your breath there. Think quad, relax. Maybe take your hand and give it a little massage if it's just not seeming to let go. Sometimes even just a hand on your thigh can help it to soften. We always want to have, as much as possible, our muscles soft in yin. Because the yang style of exercising, whether it's cycling, running, powerful yoga, Ashtanga yoga, weightlifting, all those active, Zumba, drums, all those active types of exercise, we use our muscles. But yin is complete opposite. We work into fascia. If you've ever heard of myofascial release, this is basically what we do in yin. Tugging on that white stuff in our bodies. If you think of a package of meat and you see those threads whitish thread-like fibers running through the red part of the meat. Sometimes there's a film of that white stuff. That's all in our bodies. And that's what we work in Yin. That white stuff tends to tighten up as we age. It also tightens up with stress, injuries, surgeries. On your next inhale, slowly come up. Exhale when you get all the way up. Take your top leg, set it down. Bring your bottom leg up, set it down. Lean back on your hands, close your eyes, enjoy. Shoelace is an intense pose as well. Feels wonderful to come out of. And then after you've paid attention to that feeling, maybe do some windshield wipers. Maybe straighten out your legs, give them a little bounce and a rock. And then we'll swivel around onto all fours. Coming into Swan Pose on this side. So slide your left knee behind your left wrist. Swivel that foot up towards the right wrist. Now tuck your right toes under and move this right leg back. Check in with your knee. Remember, if this is not working for your knee, there's any kind of twinges, we never stay with any pain. And come out. And remember, I showed you how to do this on your back. So the left ankle now is above the knee. And then you can lift. Feed your hands through. Control the pressure. If you're okay, keep that right leg going. And then if there's a gap between the floor and your butt cheek, then put something there. Whether it's a block, a book, just to level out. We don't want to be crooked like this because then you can see how the spine is just all, my shirt keeps going up, the spine is all crooked. So think about a little light maybe on your right pelvic bone and send that right light to the floor. Aim it at the floor. Look at your left knee. Make sure it's going out to the side a little bit. See if you can send it maybe a centimeter further out to the side. And then we tend to be leaning forward here like this. What happens if you back your hands up and back up? You all of a sudden feel a back bend. Lower back. Notice what happens to the front of your right hip here. Close your eyes and relax that right leg. And you'll feel that pull in the front of your hip joint. Back bends are tied to the front of our hip as well, something that yoga taught me. Now inhale and walk your hands forward, coming into sleeping swan. So you're resting on your forearms here if you like. You can stay here, stack your fists, make a pillow for your forehead. Maybe some of you will turn your elbows out to the side, stack your hands, rest your forehead. Stack your hands on rest your forehead on your stacked hands. Or some of you might find a block is nice here to put under, or a pillow, cushion, whatever, under your forehead, and then stretch your arms out. They can be palms down or palms together in prayer. Same thing if your forehead goes all the way to your mat. And if you get really comfy in swan, then you can always bring your arms back. Know that that puts quite a lot more pressure on your hips doing that. So always lots of options. Relax your jaw. We tend to sometimes grit our teeth when we're in some fairly intense tugging poses. Notice the complete difference in each hip joint here. The left one is in outer rotation. Maybe you feel a little tug through the groin with the knee going to the side, slight abduction there. Definitely you can notice the compression in that left hip from leaning forward, lying forward. What about the right hip? Do you notice how that tug we mentioned right near the end of the full swan where we started, how that's dissipated? But there's still some pressure there, and you can probably travel down the center of your leg, extended leg, noticing the pressure all the way to your big toe. That's the stomach meridian line, but the second toe is where it ends. Inhale now. If there's something under your left butt cheek, move it so that you can lean to that side. Swing that back leg all the way around, and we come right into square pose here. Your left leg hardly moves. That knee's going out to the side. Your foot is away from your groin. Take the right leg now. See if you can stack it on top. Turn this way so you can see. If there's a gap here by doing that, then bring a block, set it between the knee and the hip. If this isn't going to happen, or if the knee is really quite high and you're trying to force that foot up there, then you're not doing yin anymore, because we don't force. Set the ankle. Right ankle is just sitting on the floor then, or on your mat in front of that knee, and that magically puts your right knee just over, should be hovering over your left foot. So make sure that you have that alignment. Again, feel free to put something there for this leg to rest on. So again, just so important for the alignment, because quite often I see people in a V shape here and the feet by the groin. You don't want that. You want your feet away from your hips, and you want ankle by knee, okay? So it's different in parallel shins, whether they're side by side or whether they are one on top of the other. Remember, if you have any sciatica issues, this is another one where you want to lift your hips up and just set the sit bones on the edge of a rolled up quilt like that. Now, if you're okay, stay here. If you've got plenty going on, you can add to it by setting your hands maybe on the floor in front. Do that little trick that Sarah Powers told us by pushing back. Put a block there. Maybe rest your hands on the block. Keep your back flat as you lean forward, or let it round. Maybe you come down onto your forearms on the block. Maybe you put the block or the book, a couple of books stack if you don't have a block at home. Rest your arms there. Maybe it's your elbows, and you rest your head in your hands, and then the legs can magically follow suit. When you relax your head, your legs will relax. Maybe you get your head onto the block. But remember, it's not what you should look like outside of the alignment of the feet and the knees. It's if you're feeling it, you're doing it. And for lots of us, especially when we just start out, just getting your self onto the floor, but sitting in with your knees apart like this, whether they're one in front of the other or stacked on top, that's plenty of sensation, and we don't need to lean forward at all. But if you like, lean a little bit. Just keep that pressure back in the hips. Steady breathing, close your eyes. Go within, notice those tiny little changes. Maybe as the initial tugging kind of dissipates, you can lean a little further forward, find a new edge. And then find that stillness, physically trying not to back away, as I mentioned, but that inner stillness, observing what's going on. And noticing how magical your body is. It's such a gift that we don't take enough time to appreciate. That it lets go where you first started at the beginning of the pose. You're probably a little further in. And that this letting go can happen within the span of 3.5 minutes. Listen to your breath. Again, doing some acupressure on yourself here. The gallbladder meridian line, the liver line. Those are an organ pair. So sometimes some strong emotions pop up. Just let them go. On your next inhale, you're going to come all the way back up. Exhale, when you get all the way up, take your top or your front leg off, set it down, bring the bottom leg out, set it down. Lean back on your hands, close your eyes, enjoy that lovely release, warmth, coolness of blood rushing through those compressed areas, hips, all the way along your legs, your knees, your ankles, and then either straighten those legs, give them that bounce and rock that you might need, or do the windshield wipers. Thinking about the inner knee and the outer knee coming onto your mat. When things feel like they've settled down a little bit, then come all the way over onto your tummies. How are we doing for time here? Oh, great. And rest your forehead on your stacked hands. Elbows go out to the side. And just be still for a few breaths here. And we'll do a back bend here, so take your head off your hands. Come. First we're going to start off with baby cobra, so your hands come under your shoulder heads like this, and the elbows stick up by your sides like little grasshopper legs. Your nose is just barely off your mat. Relax your legs in your bum, and you'll notice that there's a little bit of work here to hold yourself up. If that's enough work for your low back, then stay there. If you're okay, slide onto your forearms, coming into Finks pose. You have options with your arms. You can keep your hands flat on your mat and your forearms parallel with the side edge of your mat. Make sure that your elbow is under your shoulder, right angle there at your elbow eye, that it's not out to the side or in too much, so you have this nice parallel look to your arms. Once you've got your elbows stacked under your shoulders, you could also maybe prefer to bring your hands together in prayer. Don't let your head drop. Look in front of those hands about 1 meter, 3 feet, and then close your eyes. That keeps your head in a nice alignment. And there's a third option for your hands. If you prefer, you can always clasp opposite elbows. Relax your bum, relax your legs. Steady breathing. In through your nose. Back out through your nose. So here, notice the back bend. This is actually quite nice and can be quite helpful if you do have disc issues. It helps to realign that sac of fluid between the vertebrae bones. Try to relax your shoulders. Put a little bit of pressure into your elbows, and you'll notice how that increases the back bend slightly. This is one of the few poses where we are targeting some muscles in our lower back. Anytime we can strengthen our low back, it's very beneficial. So much of our movement comes from here. Bending, reaching, twisting, sitting, getting back up. You can enhance this pose with your breath by breathing along your spine. Pull your breath up as you travel along the back of your spine to the base of your skull. Now exhale down the front of your spine. Good. Inhale up the back of your spine. Exhale, traveling down the front of your spine. We can bring this into our neck if you like. Pull your chin in, because that'll lengthen the back of the neck, and then lift your chin up. You'll feel the pull in the front of your neck. You'll feel some compression in the back of your neck. No pain here and no dizziness. This is wonderful for the ligaments in the front of our neck. Keep my eye on the time here. Now take a nice deep inhale, and on the exhale we're going to come all the way down. Turn your elbows out to the side, stack your hands with your favorite hand on top, set your forehead on those stacked hands, puff your low back out with your inhale, and then either stay still or bend the legs at the knees, wave them back and forth, windshield wiper style. That should feel really nice. Or if you like, and your head's on one side, hold the leg that's the same side as the way you're facing. So you're lying with one bent, one straight. Now let those legs or leg come back on down. Simply roll right over onto your back. We'll do some twists before we have our final relaxation. So we're going to bring our right knee on top of our left, stack them. Maybe you can hook the back of your calf. Arms come out into a T, and you're going to drop those knees slowly over to the left. You can scoot that left hip under a little bit if you like so. Turn your head, look to the outstretched right hand. Think about your right ear coming onto your mat. It'll bring the twist into your neck. But if it bothers your neck to do that, then don't. Just keep the back of your head on your mat. Take time to send some gratitude now to your spine. Notice the twirl. The front of your spine, if you think about the front of your spine that's deep, the back of by your pelvis, it's facing to the left. Travel along the front of your spine, noticing how it flattens out between your shoulder blades and then starts to turn at your neck. And the front of your spine that's behind your throat is facing to the right. You have this 180 twirl. So marvelous. Now inhale those knees back up, undo them, plant your foot soles, push into them, lift your hips into the air, and then set your hips down. And then we'll stack the left knee on top. See if you can hook the calf or not. Just leave the leg there, or the foot there beside the lower leg. Scoot that right hip under. Drop those knees slowly over to the right. Turn your head and look to the outstretched left hand. Try not to sacrifice that shoulder lifting up like that. Should have warned you, put a block underneath. If you've got a block handy, put a block underneath the inner knees for them to rest on if you like. Turning your head can help keep that shoulder towards your mat. Think of your left ear going on to your mat. Bring the twist into your neck vertebrae, if it's okay for your neck. Don't do it if it bothers your neck. Breathe in, breathe out. Notice this lovely open heart you have. And know that this is also restoring equilibrium in your nervous system by twisting like this. Gives you that all is well. This was an intense flow for the hips, and you're trying to remain calm. Breathe while your body is, and your mind is maybe wanting out of the pose, so that tends to wreak a little havoc with your nervous system, so twisting helps to restore everything back. On your next inhale, bring those knees back up, undo them, plant your foot soles, push into those hips, lift them into the air, and then set the hips down. Bring your knees into your chest, wrap your arms around your shins, give yourself a hug. Rock over that spine, massaging. Take your time. When you're ready, let your legs float on down, stretch them out one at a time. Or take final Shavasana with your legs bent. Maybe slip on a hoodie and get comfy. Maybe take a quilt. My latest one. Cover up. Lie back down. Take in a deep breath now. Let it go with a sigh. One more time. Deep breath in. Let go. Sink into your mat now, just like you're lying in some warm sand. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Let your breath be whatever it wants to be. Fill your body with a warm, healing light now of relaxation from your toes all the way to your scalp. You're warm, heavy, relaxed, filled with this healing light of relaxation float away now to a happy place or stay within.